Well, hello and welcome to Bible study, ladies. I'm so glad to be back this week. I hear we had quite a lively conversation last week.
We did.
Yeah, I would appreciate your comments and feedback. I have not yet watched it myself. So, and if you need to make them private comments, that's fine too. Yeah.
Wow.
And Carmen, what were you doing last week? Why weren't you here?
Yeah, I was
We
with
were in
I-
Cleveland on vacation, weren't you?
yeah.
It's a happening spot in case you haven't visited lately.
Well, I had an amazing time with Lucy. Yeah, both Esty and her husband were in town with Lucy, and then my oldest daughter Gracie came in too because she loves being an auntie. So we had a fantastic time, and Lucy can say Nana now. Oh my goodness, girls, it's the best.
You're like, what do you want?
Yeah, basically.
You can stay up late
Basically,
tonight.
yes,
You can
yes,
snuggle with Nana till you go to
Yes.
sleep.
Yes.
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 What's her middle name?
Olive. Lucy Olive. Lucy Olive. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. She. Well, here we are. Genesis 10 and 11. We wrap things up next week, but we're at the end of the book
Yeah.
here. Can you believe it?
No.
I can't either. This went fast for me.
Yeah.
So this is interesting passage. There's a lot of genealogy here. We start with genealogy and end with genealogy. Yeah, is this the first time you ever seriously read Genesis chapter 10?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes. Don't look
Okay.
up, Betsy.
All
You
right.
wanna know you were the one who said it.
I would love to hear your thoughts on, okay, was it worthwhile to slow down and read and take in the genealogy?
Yeah.
Denise, I'm getting a head nod from you.
Yes, it absolutely was. Because when you do that, there are some things that you recognize, such as locations, the names of people. One thing that's kind of cracking me up right now is Nimrod is mentioned. We don't use that in our family as a nice name. So it's like, oh, they named him Nimrod, and he was. So that's terrible.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. We've been silly today. So anyway, first.
Yeah, Nimrod.
Okay.
Oh, this is going off the rails.
Yeah.
No, but anyway, and then to see like places that we know, or we know like Gaza, the Gaza Strip, right? Or Sodom and Gomorrah. We know those places in Scripture. So that was just really interesting. Plus, they lived. Well, no, this doesn't talk about how long they lived. Sorry.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah, I just found it takes some time. Okay, there's some interest. Gomer. Tyrus, Tubal. Those are some really interesting names. But yeah, I thought it was really good. I love what I'm learning.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. So anything else from the genealogy?
I think it gave me it was difficult to read just a bunch of names, but I think if anything, it gave me perspective on just like how much is going on. And I was just thinking that the amount of patience that God has to like just let this all just play out. Like he's not in it just to like quickly fix it. Like he's like, this is going to take some time. And we see like these long genealogies. And I just thought that was just interesting that it's just so many different people. And it just helps to get that in your head that there's a lot more going on than the normal basic Bible stories that we're aware of.
I really love how you brought out this idea of God just being patient and letting it all play out, Betsy. Yeah, that was beautifully said. Thank you.
You're getting all kinds of kudos today, Betsy. You're going to walk out of here with the most stars. You prayed really cool before we started, and now the way you're saying stuff.
Oh my goodness. Oh, anything else? Anything else from Genesis chapter 10?
I have a question.
Okay.
Well, first of all,
I read, so I was like trying to skim. I'm like, you're not allowed to skim because you're gonna have to say if you read all the names or not. So I had to go back like 4 times and start over.
Yeah, because your mind goes off, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Yes.
it was hard,
Okay.
but I'm jumping ahead a tiny bit just because it says it like names all of these people, and then it says from these the coastland people spread in their land, each with his own language. But
Yes.
then later on, the next day, it talks about one language.
Yes. Yes.
I don't get it, and I need you to tell me what it means.
Okay.
I was confused by that too when
Okay.
I first read it.
Okay. Yes. Any ideas?
Well,
on that?
when they built it, it was in an area. It was Babel. It wasn't everybody on the earth that was part of that, right? So it would have been one town or one area that built the structure up into that wanted to build it up into the heavens.
Actually, this is, it is Genesis. Like, remember, they didn't have the chapter numbers that we have today. So this is all one, it's all related and all one story. And you might have noticed, like, you did notice Nimrod stands out here as a mighty man. And so this is excellent question. This is related to Nimrod. Like, the story continues, and chapter 11 doesn't explicitly utilize the name Nimrod, but this is his dominion. This is part of his kingdom. Let me just look on page. I'm on page 153. And where it talks about Nimrod. Okay, so Cush fathered Nimrod. He was the first on earth to be a mighty man. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Therefore it is said, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter before the Lord. The beginning of his kingdom was Babel, Erech, Akkad, and Calneh in the land of Shinar. From that land, he went into Assyria and built Nineveh, and it goes on with a list of names. So the beginning, that's verse 10, the beginning of his kingdom. This is the first time we see kingdom in Scripture, so that's a big deal, was Babel. And so when we flip over to 11, this is like zeroing in on Babel being built. So it's similar to, like, if we think about Genesis 1 and 2, how we have creation in Genesis chapter 1, but then Genesis chapter 2 sort of zeroes in and gives us a little bit more detail about creation. Does that make sense?
Not to my question.
No.
Like,
really?
it's out of order.
No, it's because it says in 11, are you saying basically what I said, that it was the area of Babel?
That had one language.
Right, because when it talks about, like, would that have included the coastland people to build, would have been part of Babel? You see, because each son has their genealogy, and then it talks about where they, like, their languages, their lands, and their nations.
Right.
So
But
this is a continuation of Nimrod, but not necessarily Japheth's
this is
people.
just like, okay, so Genesis chapter 10, the camera is way up high, and we're seeing all over, and we're seeing years later. But so the camera just zooms into Nimrod,
Okay.
kind of like what you said,
Yeah.
Denise. It zooms into Babel, but early on. Like, this is the beginning of this is early.
But
But Babel had one language. It doesn't necessarily mean that they all had the same language.
No, the world, I mean, I think the scripture says 11:1, the whole earth had one language and the same words.
then I'm with
So
you, that does confuse me, because it does say with his own language by their clans and their nations. And it says that 3 different times.
It does, but this is this is sort of out of order in a way. Does that make sense? Betsy,
So,
help me
like,
out. How do I
so
explain this better?
Is it like, so we see like the full picture, and eventually each genealogy has their own language. But
Yes.
before they each develop their own language, Babel happens.
Ah.
So they all start, and so the genealogy is there, and they all have the same language.
Yes.
And then Babel happens, and they all get their own language, and so it continues.
That's
Yes.
With that?
That is not a fun way to read it, is it?
No, that's
Okay.
confusing.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
now it makes sense.
Okay. Excellent.
Sorry.
No, it's
No,
an
that's
excellent
question.
You said,
It's-
does that make sense now?
No.
I loved that.
Thank you for
No.
answering on it.
I do not
You're like-
get stars today.
Me neither.
I would give you a star. I
Thank
like
you for
that.
answering honestly, because somebody asked me the same question after the teaching time this morning. She had the exact same question. So there are others that have this question
Yeah.
too.
Okay.
It's important to clarify because
Yeah.
this is a big deal. Now the whole earth had one language and the same words. Can you imagine? Like
So when he dispersed them, they were dispersed by this page.
this is. He disperses them, and eventually the world ends up looking like this.
Okay, that's what, yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So
Oh,
I have a table, and we'll post it online for ladies that aren't here. But I do have a table that kind of shows the genealogy and what it looks like. The progress. Do you like graphs, that kind of thing?
sometimes.
Might be easier.
As long as they are easy to understand.
Yeah.
One of the ladies in my group was saying that even like with just how you're saying like they are dispersed based on day one a little bit.
Mhm.
That sort of shows that God was dispersing the people from like based on families. So
Yes.
so is that
Yes.
correct? Like
Yes.
he dispersed them
Yes.
by family.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it would be based off of this.
And the family is like a whole clan because it's
Yeah.
multiple people in the family, right?
Yes.
It wouldn't just be like the Alphins and the Reeds and the Beasleys and
Yeah.
the Blakes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And these are the generations of the sons of Noah. So we see in this genealogy, it's a little bit different. We don't just see individuals, we see individuals plus families plus nations are listed here too. So for me, just practically, it brings a lot of comfort knowing that God he cares enough about individuals that there are specific names listed here. There are families listed here. There are nations. Like God cares about these things. I take comfort in that. Yeah. Denise.
I don't even want to comment.
But your eyebrows are.
I know, because I feel like I don't know if I want to know all this because it doesn't make as much sense to me. And so I was fine before I knew it. Now I'm confused after I know it. Do you know what I'm saying?
No.
I know. See, I'm good.
No.
Like I love the thought that God gives time for things to happen, right?
Mhm.
I love that thought. I love the thought that he knows individual people, right? But I feel like I'm a little more confused than before I started. And I'm sorry. I don't want to be confused. I'll be fine.
Well, let's see. Maybe we can unpack it a little
Okay.
bit. Maybe what we should do
I'm
is
sorry.
talk. No, you are good. It's all good. What about, would you like to unpack Nimrod?
Yes.
Just a pinch. And
Because listen, when
Okay.
you think about this, like I'm looking, okay, so we know that they lived like 900 and some years, right? One of them did not. One is a shorter when we go further. So all of these people would have been alive then when Nimrod all of these people would have been alive and the tower would have been started. And then God said, no,
Mhm.
I'm going to disperse you. And so all of these people, even though this is the 30,000 view, when we get into the details, all these people would have probably still been alive and been dispersed by their clans. I guess that's like, does that make sense?
Yeah, it kind of does. I
Okay.
don't know if I went that far with it.
Right. That's
Denise.
why I look at
Yeah.
all of these like generations and I think,
And I'm not sure, do we know how long these folks lived?
I thought it said
Is
yes. Yes, we do. On page 161. Shem's generation.
Shem.
Yeah, I'm
yes.
sorry.
Yeah, no, that's totally fine.
And by the way, they went down.
Right.
Right?
Right.
But before that, maybe it was in the last chapter, it did talk about how long they lived till.
Right.
Right? And so that's what is that's the nugget that's like making me think.
I think this genealogy, the purpose of this one is
Yeah.
different from the other genealogy that we see.
Okay. Now that helps.
Okay, and
Yes.
some people call this the Table of Nations. I don't know if you've ever seen that term.
Mm-mm.
So just what did it look like for people to disperse, families to disperse, and grow
So,
into these
It doesn't really
nations?
matter who was alive and who wasn't.
It
What
doesn't.
matters is that this action happened and they were dispersed by their clans.
Bingo.
That's what this is.
Bingo.
That makes sense to me.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Oh no, it's
I'm looking at all these and I'm thinking, what? Okay.
it's
Okay.
all good. It's all good.
But you know what, though? Honestly, this is the kind of stuff where if you're not a believer and you want to disprove, this is the kind of stuff you can come at and say, it doesn't make a bit of sense. How can the Bible be true?
Mhm.
At the same time, this is an amazing historical document too.
Right.
Like even some of the harshest critics will say, okay, there's real history here. These are real
Mhm.
people, and these are the areas that these different people went to.
So this kind
So-
of correlates with a couple of things that I'm thinking, like the details of the ark. Could he have gotten any more detailed, right? The details of the time in the second month, and the
Yes.
right? So God very specific areas to be detailed.
Yes. Yeah, I love that, Denise.
Okay.
Yes, I love
I
that.
got 1 star.
Yeah.
Something's happening.
Uh-oh. What does it say? Typing. Can you read that?
Trying to reconnect.
Uh-oh. That's weird because does it show that?
Does it show that we're dead?
I mean,
I'm alive.
It
Okay.
shows us all going like this.
ladies, on our end, in case we are still live, it says that it's trying to reconnect. We are still live. Okay. Because
Okay,
we
put a
are
smile on
a
your
late
face.
while. Yeah.
Did they hear the whole good conversation we just did? Okay, good.
All right. So
Thank you.
now, yes.
Yes, because that was, yeah. I kind of almost snuck out of the room on that one.
Your face
We're
wouldn't allow it.
we're good.
Come on, Denise.
I know, but
We're
it
good.
was so, yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank
So-
you all.
Let's
But I
just
think just even practically, if we can't have like a space to talk about stuff like that, then like we sort of just like harbor in these like fears of just like, I don't understand that. And like even like what you were saying, like that doesn't make any sense. They just said that they're all speaking the same language, but it says they're not. Like
Yeah.
if you grow up in the church, we're always taught like the Bible is inerrant and everything's correct. But then when you come across something like that seems like a contradiction. Did I just find the first contradiction? You know, just like I think it's important to talk about these because like I mean it sort of just eases anxiety and just builds faith to be like, okay, calm down, chill out. Let's take a look at this. I don't know. I think it's a good conversation to have.
Thank
Well,
you.
also too, like if we question for a non-believer, what would they think? Then when they looked at this, they'd be like, "That doesn't make sense. That
Right.
doesn't line up."
Mhm.
Which is another challenge to Christians to study the Bible, not just read it, because and have these conversations so that when people do question it, we actually know what we're talking
Mhm.
about.
Mhm.
Which
I
for
still
a
have to
long
go
time-
home and like
Yeah.
chew on this I don't
Yeah.
know that I could teach what we just talked
Right.
about, right?
Mhm.
I would have to
Mhm.
chew on it
Mhm.
for a while.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But it, yeah,
All
makes me
right.
want to cry.
Yay. Oh.
Yay!
Yeah, that's a win.
Okay, but then she was like, "Wait,
Wait.
Wait.
I hope that's cry in a good way. Like I was thinking crying over how detailed and awesome God is.
Everything. Just the
okay.
whole thing feels a little bit great and overwhelming.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Oh.
Okay.
You don't need to apologize, friend.
Okay, so I have another question.
Okay. Now I'm scared.
No, I think I have to, it's where it says, hold on. Where God says, look what they can do. Yes.
Oh.
I thought it was
Day
kind of,
3.
okay, thank you.
Verse 6.
Oh, thank you. I'm skipping a day. Yes. Yes, it seemed lofty to me that this is only the beginning of what they will do, and nothing that they propose to do will now be impossible for them.
Mm.
And I thought, wait a minute. I get that God came down and redirected them, and in his grace, this is not a good idea what y'all are trying to do. I'm gonna fix it for you yet again.
Mm-hmm.
But and we didn't really have time, I didn't feel, on Sunday to really talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, I wrote, it seems lofty. Yeah, okay.
Those are some powerful words, aren't they?
Yeah.
Did anybody else unpack those words of God? They are one people and they have all one language, and this is only the beginning of what they will do. And nothing that they propose to do will now be impossible for them.
I don't know if I'm making this too simple.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love simple.
Well, but when I say that, then I mean, like, I don't know if I'm actually right.
Mhm.
But for me, it was just like God putting them in check, like a power thing. Like, he gives us brains. He gives us the ability to do things. He gives us free will.
Mm.
But if he wants to, like, put us in check and say, whoa, I got to change this up, or else you guys are going to go way off course.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make
Mhm.
sense? Am I wrong?
Wait, say that again. Got to get you in check so you don't go off course.
Like, I feel like it was like a personal game for people, and like building themselves up and not honoring God. And so it was like checking them, like putting them into check. Who really is in charge?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I feel, okay, so one thing I see is nothing they propose to do will now be impossible. That doesn't mean they're going to accomplish it.
Mm-hmm.
And this did lead to them forgetting about their need for God.
Mm, yes.
Right?
Yes.
So you become too independent. Well, I can do that.
Totally.
Right?
Totally. Yeah.
Because, just the one thing that so stands out is, yes, the flood was the result of bad behavior. I mean, that's simplifying it, I know, right? But he came back with a covenant and a sign, but it did not take away sin. So we still need our redemptive plan.
Yes.
Right? So
yes,
doesn't that
yes.
kind of address?
Absolutely. I mean, there's definitely, are you saying there's grace and mercy here?
Yes.
Yes.
Because what they propose to do doesn't mean they can do it. That makes all the difference in the world to me.
Mhm.
Proposing to do something and actually doing it,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That is two very different things. I mean, you propose it, but then to actually do it is something else,
Mm-hmm.
right? So they can propose anything now, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to build a thing up into the heavens.
Well, he does go on to say now, nothing that they propose to do will now be impossible for them. So it does sound like they can, people can accomplish a lot when we put our minds to it.
Do you
and
really
that kind
think
of
they
thing.
could build that building up to the heavens? I
Yeah,
mean, we have a
and-
tower in our area, current day. I don't know what the guy was going to do with it, but I mean, an area person who, yes, I mean, in the church, and now it's just a big ugly brick thing that's
I
stuck
forgot.
up high.
Okay,
It's kind
yeah.
of up by you, actually. So I don't know. Could they do it?
I think what do you girls think? I think he's saying they can, when they put their minds as one, being unified as one, they can accomplish a lot together. But I'm going to put this check, as Hillary said, on what they do. And
But then he was
Yeah.
giving people a lot of credit. Like, that's what surprised me. I was like, you're like, I can see both sides of like the negative and the positives of this. And we talked about it a little bit in our small group this morning, just how like it seems that he's saying that we are much more powerful than we think that we are. And I think that's both good and that's both bad. And I think we can clearly see the bad from like when I don't know why I thought of this, but like Nazi Germany, like so many people got together under the same thing. Like, look what we did. Like, they massacred millions. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, but it was terrible.
But like
Horrific.
but when people get together, when humans get together, they are much more powerful than they think that they are, and they can accomplish big things, bad and amazing things. We landed on the moon. Like, we created like all this computers and stuff. Like, so humans together can do lots of powerful things, and I think it's both good and bad. That's how I took it.
Well, it makes me think of what we just studied last year with Paul. Unity, unity, unity in Christ. So that would, right.
Absolutely. And even going back to John, that was Christ's final prayer for the church, is that we would be unified. But I really like how you point out, okay, this can be used for good or it can be used for bad. And I think that we should think about whose kingdom are we building? Clearly, whose kingdom
Whose
is
kingdom?
Nimrod building here?
I hate that name.
Well, his name, supposedly, the Hebrew points to let us rebel. So
It does mean that.
Yeah.
Yes, we shall rebel.
So-
Yes.
absolutely, they are rebelling against God's command to go and multiply and that kind of thing. There's pride here. We want to build a name for ourselves. And then there's this idea of probably another religion too. Right? So,
Oh, are you kidding me?
uh-uh.
We're on 27 minutes.
Okay, we are. Wow, ladies, there's so much to discuss
I
here.
think they'd do that.
Denise, where are you? Yes. Do you have something you want to comment?
No,
on
if we
that?
have to finish, we can finish.
Yeah.
Her brain hurts. I can see it.
Yeah.
So how to wrap that up, friends? Apply, like, maybe can we just end this away, because I think we have made some good observations today. We've sought to better understand what the word is saying. What's a takeaway? How do you apply this to life today?
Okay, so I would say when I look at day 3, my application, it says, I wrote, God is aware of my actions. He cares about the direction I'm taking, and he's in control. So for me, that's a good way to end everything that we've just kind of talked about.
I'll try to make this quick because I feel like this goes off on a whole other tangent.
Oh, that's okay.
But I feel like my biggest application came from day 2 when it's talking about let us make a name for ourselves, making your name great. I looked into that theme, and as I was looking at it, that seemed like at the time that was a very common thing. Most people wanted to make a name for themselves, so they would have children. They would try to hopefully, because they didn't want to be forgotten after death, so they wanted their name to be great so that they could live on eternally. Whatever, I don't know. It was a whole ordeal how I found this. Anyway, so making your name great and how that was a common thing. And I also found that it's not inherently a bad thing to make your name great, and I'll show you why. Okay, so in Genesis 12:2 and 2 Samuel 7:9, we see God making Abraham's name great and David's name great. So the distinguisher of making your name great is who's making your name great. And that's God.
Okay.
So I think that was the thing that I was like a light switched on. I was like, God is the only one who can make our name great. The only reason that we're great ever, righteous, whatever, is because of God. It's not because we did it ourselves.
Mhm.
So that was something that I took away. And I said, yikes, do I believe that?
Well, I love it. Yeah, love it. Good. Hillary, anything to add?
My application goes with kind of what you're saying, except for more for me, just like to check like my motives in who do I want to see my name as being great. Like it's easy for us to want to like do really well in our career or like with our family or this or that, like, and we strive for all these things. But for me, I just want to check my heart and say, am I striving for all these things because I want people to see me,
Right.
or because I want to glorify God and actually be used by Him, and that be my purpose?
Beautifully said, ladies. With that, I think we'll close right there. That's something for us to chew on. Friends, thank you so much for joining us here today. We really appreciate it. We will be live next week. We'll do a wrap-up session and talk about what we ultimately take away from these first 11 chapters of Genesis. Thanks again. Oh, I guess I have the mouse, don't I? And can we